Hi everybody, welcome to our lecture for Chapter 8, which is Transformational Leadership. Out of any of the chapters that we talk about in this textbook, you're going to find that this is probably the most addressed, most talked about chapter in educational research, and the one that most people are doing dissertations on. It is incredible throughout urban research, throughout suburban research, but it seems to be the one topic that's continuously covered in the educational research community. It is the most dominant research in education right now. If you read current articles and current journals on education, you will see the words transformational leadership everywhere in every single one of those journals. UCEA, which is the most popular place to get information on educational administration, they themed their entire conference off of transformational leadership for the last few years. So knowing that, this is something that you're going to find a lot of information on. You find it in turnaround schools that are low-achieving urban schools. Most educational research projects are conducted in low-achieving urban school districts. It's where most of the projects are conducted in. And that's something that you have to know when you're looking at research, because most of you don't work in low-performing urban schools. So research on transformational leadership might not necessarily be pertinent for you based on your experience in your organization, but the framework is used in those types of school districts. It is concerned with long-term goals more than anything else. I know I give you the emotions, values, ethics, and standards, but the key thing in this method is long-term goals. What is the district going to look like in the long term? How's the district going to sustain? What does that look like? The idea is that subordinates will do more than that's expected of them because they're inspired. They're inspired to accomplish more, they're inspired to be more, and they want to accomplish more. It is a perfect theory for urban schools. It really works if you have the time to do it. But under this assumption, the principal has to have time to implement it and not be under pressure. That means that they have time to get to know their staff, select their staff, work with their staff, and develop their staff and elicit appropriate feedback that can be used in the future. So if you believe in this method and you think it works, the key behind it is that the principal has time without pressure to get to know their staff. My question for all of you is, do you have time? Because I would argue in a large urban school setting, you do not have much time to be a transformational leader. If you go into a failing school and give a leader time to make changes, you get buy-in. But you have to give those leaders changes to make time you have to give the leader time to make changes in a failing school. We talk about this all the time in doctoral level classes where people are training to be superintendents. If you have a school that needs turned around, it has to be given time and people have to get the opportunity to do that. If your superintendent puts you on a short leash, this version, this model will not work, and the likelihood of it being the theory of choice is very low because this takes time. It is a long-term model. So most research is between transformational and transactional. Transactional is the bulk of leadership models. It's the exchanges between leaders and their followers. Transformational is connecting with others, building relationships, and using those relationships to motivate them to reach their potential and to form a common goal. So, under the definition, Adolf Hitler and Saddam Hussein were transformational leaders. And that's true. Even if you don't want to buy it, it is the truth. They were considered to be transformational leaders. Are they good transformational leaders? Well, no, the transformation wasn't good, but they were transformational leaders. So he reconceptualized this and used pseudo-transformational to show that sometimes leaders have bad leadership. They transform and they have warped moral values. I would ask, are these types of leaders still transformational? And I would argue yes. We've had people that have done leadership teaching that looks at these models a number of times. So most of the current research on transformational leadership is tied to ethics. It's basically saying, is the person doing what they're doing in an ethical way if they're transforming the school and transforming the organization? So the other important characteristic of people that are transformational leaders is they are naturally charismatic. They have exceptional powers, reserved for a few, is of divine origin, and results in the person being treated as a leader. They have this energy, they have this presence about them where you know that they can do anything that they say that they're going to do, and they make you believe it. Those are transformational leaders. And charisma does matter in this approach. So some have stated that divine origin doesn't make for charisma. You can interpret that as your own. So what should you look at for this? You look at strong role models. They're competent to followers. They have ideological goals that are clear and easy to remember. That's why we say, I have a dream. It is clear, easy to remember. You can associate it with the person who said it. They have high expectations, and they get task-relevant motivation. They make you want to do things because of who they are and what they are. Most studies that have existed that are of charismatic leadership say that it's intrinsic, not extrinsic in its approach. Ask yourself what you would do in your job that you would do without getting paid. What's the extra thing that you would do? For me, I'm telling you what the extra thing that I would do is. I'm doing it right now. I'm filming lessons. I don't have to film lessons. Why am I doing this? Because I'm hopeful that this will actually help you learn the material, and you can go back and you can revisit it. It's why I film lessons. What should you expect your staff to do without getting paid for? That's another question as well, because your staff isn't always going to do what you expect them to do. So how do you intrinsically motivate your staff? If you can find a way to do this, it's the most challenging things in all of leadership. And that's not just educational leadership, that's business leadership. You have to find a way to make people want to work and do well. Some people want to come in and collect a paycheck. If you have a school that requires this kind of leadership to turn around schools, think about what you would have to do to motivate your staff and what that would look like. So the continuum that's presented in our textbook is the continuum from transformational leadership to laissez-faire leadership. It's a 7-factor model, and it looks at this continuum, and it presents it as a continuum. So the first factor is idolize influence. In this case, leaders are always a strong role model for their subordinates. They're always going to act in an ethical manner. They're going to be moral. They're going to show that they are a true leader, and they believe in the leadership style. They do this, in them doing it, it makes others want to follow their vision. But it takes time and requires trust and respect for it to occur. The notion of inspirational motivation, they're communicating high expectations to their subordinates. Most of the time, these are unaccomplishable. You are not going to be able to meet these expectations. But the leader, in their mind, says, I believe in these expectations. I know that these expectations can be met. Because then they're creating a shared vision, and they're saying that I believe in these models. Why shouldn't everybody believe in these models? A lot of the times, you can use this as a focus factor to get people engaged and get people involved and really get them to buy into your leadership style and your leadership model. The notion of intellectual stimulation. People have to be creative and innovative. If you truly are a transformational leader, you let your teachers try things. You have to be confident, you have to be comfortable with them, and you let your subordinates make mistakes. If you find a way to use this and make a better organization and more effective, it can help all members of the organization. So the other notion, and this is the most challenging one in teaching, everybody needs individual things. Each person, each teacher has something specific that they need in order to make their job good. What one person needs is different than what another person needs. So there's this notion of coaching, because in theory, you should be able to individually coach your teachers and give them individualized professional development, just like we ask for individualized professional development for our students. So if you can find a way to individualize this and give them appropriate coaching, it's going to help them be more engaged in their work, and it's going to help them follow you better. So what are the transactional factors? Contingent rewards and management by exception. These should be avoided unless it's the only way that you can motivate people. So let's chat about these. This is when you are giving somebody rewards for following you. If you do what's asked, you're going to get a reward. If the test scores improve to 80% in this low-performing school, and everybody's everybody's meeting their target goals and their target objectives, then we're actually going to give a higher score. When organizations use this, it's very similar to a contingent reward system. In leadership roles, it's non-transformational, but it does work excellent in classrooms with classroom teachers, because classroom teachers do look for rewards and factors related to rewards in their positions. So, management by exception. This is essentially when you're giving corrective criticism, feedback, and negative reinforcement. Sometimes you monitor your subordinates closely because you want to see, are they making mistakes, and you're documenting when they make mistakes. Sometimes it's more passive. You intervene only after something hasn't been met and there are problems. If a building requires transformation, it's one of the worst things you can do as a principal, because you don't want to monitor them closely. You don't want them to make you feel like you're always watching them, because they're constantly going to be looking themselves, because the building's poor performing, for ways they can make it better. If they feel like they're being watched, that's going to be a problem in this model. So laissez-faire is the absence of leadership. You give no feedback, you don't tell anybody anything, you don't help the followers. If the organization is a transformational organization, this model does not work. So the 1985 Bennis-Nanus study asked leaders how they used their leadership styles to transform an organization. There were 4 consistent answers that were consistent across all of their findings. They said that there's a clear vision, there's an idea of how to make others accept a new identity, trust is created, and people know strengths and weaknesses, and the attention is focused on strengths. I think these are all big ideas that can be easily looked at in something on transformational leadership. If you look at transformational leadership and improving organizations, in business, you'll see Kouzes and Posner. Their work started first in 1987. It was improved upon in 2002, and it's really a strong work in terms of examining what leadership is. And we're going to talk about each one of these on the next slides. So the first one is model the way. And for some of you that are coming out of business or industry, I promise you've probably heard these terms and these sayings a million times. This is a very, very, very popular study in business, and some of you could have chosen this for your business book. So modeling the way, leaders are clear about what they value and how they plan to lead. And they demonstrate that unwaveringly. They do it at all times. They make sure that their message is consistent and that people see them as fair and ethical leaders. That's probably the key in this notion of modeling the way. Number 2 is this idea of a shared vision. You can say what the position is going to look like and what the school is going to look like in 1 year, 5 year, and 10 year. This is that idea in this notion of strategic planning, and why I keep coming back to it. Because under shared visions, strategic planning is a big idea, and it's a big purpose of it. So the next thing that happens is they start to challenge the process. If something isn't working and it's not correct, they're going to take a risk, and they're going to try to see what could possibly make the school or make the organization better. I agree with this statement, especially when you're in a low-performing school. Change has to happen slowly and one step at a time. If you do too much change over a long period, if you do too much change over a short period of time, your teachers are not going to buy it, and they're not going to be on board with what you're doing. So enabling others to act, all that this basically means is you're giving people the chance to be leaders themselves and use the model to benefit them. I think that's a big part of the Kouzes and Posner model, and it's a way to improve the organization as well. So when you can encourage the heart, you're giving recognition and you're giving rewards. If you can celebrate people's accomplishments and make everybody feel like what they did is a way to benefit the building or the district, you're giving them real, true celebrations, and I think that's important too. So this model is current. It is everywhere. It focuses on the needs of your teachers and not your principals, and it's really big in educational literature right now. However, I hesitate to tell you to use it because it can be elitist and anti-democratic, which is seen as a problem for some because it's this notion of Superman coming in. Nordhaus frames it as heroic leadership, but you know, this person comes in, they're a hero, they're going to transform the school, and I think the fault of this really is it's done more in urban schools. So if you're not in an urban school, all the research and all the practice and work of this model is really urban, and that's where we've seen success and where we've seen results. And it can be abused because you're giving people time to learn the culture. And if you give somebody time to learn the culture, things can happen while they're learning the culture of the organization. So the next thing that we look at is this idea of authentic leadership. This is probably one of the biggest no-brainers and one of the easiest topics that we'll cover. If I can do anything to help, as I normally say, please let me know. Thank you.